Hello and welcome to Das German Kritic, weil hey, außer mir macht's ja keiner. And seeing how this is the very first of my reviews on this channel, I figured we'd start out with one of the first pieces of German cinema ever made. Now, even before the advent of cinema, Germany already had a rich history in telling not only stories, but horror stories as well. From dramatic myths and legends, to the mystery plays of the Middle Ages, to the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, Germany has always had a fascination with storytelling. However, today's film was the first to bring German cinema out of the realms of obscurity, and it paved the way for more extravagant and ambitious projects to follow. Well, mostly ambitious, but we'll get to that in time. In a long time, I hope. So take your seats in the tent, join the circus, and become part of the menagerie as we take a look at the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So we begin this terrifying first tale of German cinema with Holy shit, it's Samara Morgan. Actually, this is Jade, played by Little Dagover. She's being watched by our protagonist, Francis, played by Friedrich Fehr, as well as an old man who only appears twice in the entire movie, as Francis relays what happened to him and his fiancée. Flashback to some time earlier as we see Francis and his friend Alan, played by Hans-Heinrich von Twardowski, as they come across an ad for the local fair, which the two decide to go to. The film then decides to cut to Ebenezer Scrooge? Apparently he forgot all about Morley's warning and he's now ripping off people at a circus fair. Actually, this is our titular character, Dr. Caligari, played by Werner Krauss. He's on his way to see the state secretary to get a permit to display his oddity known as the somnambulist, or sleepwalker, known as Cesare, played by Conrad Veidt. He of course gets the permit, or we wouldn't have a movie. And what does this abomination, this hideous creature of grotesque look like? Marilyn Manson with a bad haircut. Gee, let's just hope they don't blame him for World War I and the downfall of the empire. Anyway, the doctor tells the people that they can ask the sleepwalker any question which it will readily and correctly answer. Wow, a being that can answer every question correctly with 100% accuracy, and that's never ever wrong? I mean, think of the possibilities. Will the DAP become a threat to the stability of the Weimar Republic? Are relations with France finally going to get better after the mess that was World War I? Is Uwe Boll finally going to make a video game adaptation that isn't complete ass shit? Sure, those are all relevant questions, but Alan decides to have a go at it and asks the sleepwalker the question that's most on his mind. Wow, what a bummer. Maybe he should have asked about the impending doom that's the DAP. Naturally, since the sleepwalker can never lie, Alan is soon murdered by an ominous shadowy figure. Francis hears about this and immediately suspects the good doctor being behind this. However, his suspicions seem to prove him wrong when an attempted murder is seized by the police. He tells them that he planned to murder the old woman in the way the previous two murders had taken place, but swears that he has nothing to do with them in any way whatsoever. Meanwhile, Jane snoops around the fairgrounds and discovers the doctor's cabinet. The doctor discovers her there and invites her to see the sleepwalker, and while he does, we get one of the legitimately creepy moments in this film. Oh, let that be the poster for the next upcoming election season. With the information he received at the police department, Francis then decides to hold watch at the doctor's cabin to see if he can catch the doctor red-handed. Yet, this appears to be futile as, at the same time, the sleepwalker is on the prowl again and attempts to kidnap Jane from her house. This doesn't go all too well, and the sleepwalker is quickly followed by Jane's staff, and Jane is saved before the sleepwalker can bring her back to the doctor. The next day, the police arrive at the doctor's cabin where it turns out that the good doc has been keeping watch over a puppet the entire time. Seizing the momentary confusion of everyone around him, the doctor makes a hasty run for it, and Francis follows him all the way to an insane asylum. There, he questions the staff about the good doctor. They can't help him, but kindly refer him to the director of the institution. And who exactly is this director?
What a twist!
Yes, it turns out the director of the institution is in fact the doctor himself. Francis tries to convince the staff of this, and while the director sleeps, they all decide to rummage through his things to find further proof of Francis' suspicions. He finds out that the good doctor is in fact insane, what a shock, and that he's trying to replicate the crazy experiment of a certain Dr. Caligari who lived some 200 years ago. Wait... If the doctor lived in the 1700s, then who was this old Scrooge guy the entire time? Actually, we're never really told. In fact, as they go through the director's stuff, we get this weird scene of Ebenezer here, walking around and constantly seeing writing everywhere telling him that, quote, "You must become Dr. Caligari." Admit it, Doc, you took some of the drugs you prescribed your patients yourself, didn't you?
Finger weg von harten Drogen. Da liegt kein Segen drauf.
My sentiment, exactly. After this discovery, the staff straps the doc into a straitjacket and shoves him into a cell. This brings us to what is within the context of the movie, present day, as Francis takes the old man to the insane asylum where both Jane and the sleepwalker are now kept. Francis tries to ask his fiancée if she wants to leave and marry him, but all he gets back is some insane babble. Then, in an odd turn of events, not only the staff, but also the director walk into the court and quickly apprehend Francis.
It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
Oh, excuse me, my mistake. This is, after all, a silent film. The film ends much like The Apprehension of the Doctor, only this time the roles are diabolically reversed. This time, Francis gets strapped into the straitjacket and shoved into the cell himself, possibly for the rest of his life. So this was the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. How does it hold up after roughly 100 years? Surprisingly pretty good, actually. Now, granted, some of the things might have worked better in the 1920s when cinema was new and people didn't really know what to expect going in, especially the whole cue card thing. But other than that, it's actually a quite solid piece of cinema, perhaps even something of an early conspiratorial thriller, if you will. The overacting is somewhat hilarious to watch, but then again, if you only have your facial expressions and your body movement to work with, you kind of have to go with what you got. So, if you're into old silent films, or if you've never seen it before, I would definitely consider giving this a watch. This has been Das German Kritic, weil außer mir macht's ja keiner.